Hey, everybody, and welcome to Adapter Parish, episode 108, Into the Woods, and our tribute to the late Stephen Sondheim. Into the Woods, it's time to go, but first, let me tell you about our next episode. Julie hasn't been the same since that night, but at least she believes that no one but her and her three friends involved will ever know what really happened, until one day when she gets a letter that simply reads, "I know what you did last summer." Into the Woods made us feel a lot of feelings, so we wanted to get as far away from that as possible with this teen slasher classic. Classic. We'll be discussing Lois Duncan's original 1973 novel, the 1997 movie with Jennifer Love Hewitt and Sarah Michelle Gellar, and the new 2021 TV miniseries from Amazon. That'll be available in 2 weeks on Tuesday, January 18th. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections about today's episode or any others that you'd like to hear on the show, remember to email adapterparishcast@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, we'd love it if you would share that with the world by leaving a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. We're also on Patreon at patreon.com/adaptcast. We've got a patron-only community and our bi-weekly bonus show, Adapter Parish Plus, with episodes releasing every Tuesday between episodes of this show. We hope you check it out. Show notes from this and all other episodes can be found at adapterparishcast.com. And with that, on with the show, Adapter Parish, episode 108, Into the Woods. Hello, and welcome to Adapter Parish, a podcast about adaptation. I'm Jeremy Latour.
I'm Ari Lipshaw, and we have for you, for your listening pleasure, another singing episode.
I mean, I don't know the songs in this one as well.
Agony.
Here's the thing. I didn't really know Into the Woods until very, very recently, and I have fallen in love with it in the last, week and a half.
So you should.
And I sing this. I've been singing the songs a lot, but I don't know all the words of the song.
I got a book right here with all the words.
I know, but you have it in front of you. Don't do this to me. I don't feel comfortable singing in front of all the people.
Well, then we won't do any singing. Probably a lot of people would appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our kid doesn't like me to sing. If I'm singing, he's like, "Mama, no."
Yeah, he doesn't like it when we sing.
He doesn't like it. But doing this episode this week has inspired me to put together a great musical theater playlist for him that we've been listening to in the car. And it's so good. And this morning I was just bopping along and we got out of the car and I was like, you know what, buddy? Your mom has great taste in musical theater. We were listening to some bops.
If you do say so yourself.
If I do say so, well, I didn't write them. I just made the playlist. If I do say so myself.
Mm-hmm.
We were listening to Trouble from The Music Man, followed by Ring of Keys from Fun Home, followed by Always Look on the Bright Side of Life from Spamalot. So really a good range.
Did he repeat in the car, "Life's a piece of shit" when you look at it?
No, I don't think he was paying attention, but I laughed because I forgot about that.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's fine. It's Tim Curry. All right. What are we doing?
I thought we came here to talk about Stephen.
Yeah. Well, okay. The Broadway community lost one of its great lights about a month ago.
On November 26th.
Right after Thanksgiving. And what better way, we thought, to pay tribute to this great band than to dunk on... No,
we're not here to dunk.
We're not here to dunk. We're not here to dunk.
We're
here to pay tribute.
By the time we get to the end, there might have been some light disagreement with a few things, but there will be no dunking in this episode.
No dunking. Stephen Sondheim died the day after Thanksgiving, 2021, age 91, and a light went out on Broadway. Probably literally too, actually, now that I think about it. Broadway's having a rough time right now. I don't know if you have been hearing all of the news. They opened again, and basically Broadway, quote unquote, Broadway is open. They're not closed for COVID anymore, but basically the shows are running on fumes because everybody has COVID.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What's your plan?
What's my plan?
Because we've now invited everyone in.
And now I'm bumming them out.
And we already told them that this episode was about mourning the death of Stephen Sondheim.
Yeah.
And so your plan was to bum people out even more?
No. I mean, it's nice of you to think I had a plan. That's really flattering.
Is it generous?
It's just very generous and kind. to make that assumption. I had no plan. I just say whatever passes through my transom, and
Yep.
you know that about me.
Well, I think I'd love to just dial it back a little bit on the COVID talk and maybe get back to Stephen Sondheim. I feel like it's worth talking about.
He didn't die of COVID. He died of just being old.
So I want to reel it back
Yeah.
from the COVID talk and just talk about Stephen Sondheim.
Yeah.
As much as you want to talk about COVID right now.
I don't want to talk about COVID right
then
now.
why do you keep bringing it
I'm
up?
just saying it didn't have anything to do with COVID. He's just real old.
There's
It
a lot of
was really
things-
sad.
A lot of things didn't have to do it.
All right.
But we definitely had a choice in front of us because he passed away, and we thought, I mean, here's the deal. Many people who knew him are in a much better position to actually say beautiful, wonderful things about the man. We are just two theater kids who have a podcast.
I met him one time.
You did.
He's kind of a weirdo. Like, met him at Columbia University. He was giving a very intimate talk.
When you met him, what did you say?
I didn't like speak to him. Well, I just want to be clear. Like, it was like a master class. It wasn't like it was a lecture hall of like hundreds of people. It was
Yeah.
it was like 25 people. It was pretty great.
That's not nothing.
No, yeah, it was nice.
We thought about it and we thought, okay, well, the show that we do, how can we talk about Stephen Sondheim? Well, we have to talk about something that's been adapted. So what are the options that we had in front of us? Should we do West Side Story? Well, like West Side Story we could have done. The new one just came out.
Yeah.
But I feel like
That would have been fun to do.
it would have been fun to do, but if we're celebrating Stephen Sondheim, what's the big issue with West Side Story?
Well, he only wrote the lyrics.
Right.
He did not write the music. That was famously Leonard Bernstein.
we could do Sweeney Todd.
Mhm.
What's the danger we run into with Sweeney Todd?
Well, we have some strong disagreements about the best Sweeney Todd of all time.
Yep. And we fight over that quite a bit.
Quite a bit.
It's come up on the show before.
It's come up before. It's fine.
Also,
It doesn't bear mentioning.
Like the Tim Burton movie is anyway.
It's not like,
So what I'm saying is there aren't a ton of options. And then I think you were right to say, really, we need to do Into the Woods.
Yeah.
And I was excited about that because I'd heard it was good.
Mhm.
Turns out that was accurate, and I have gotten super into the Woods. We went through what versions of Into the Woods are we going to be talking about today?
So we're going to be talking about the original Broadway version,
Mhm.
which they filmed in 1987, 1988 when it was on Broadway. 1989.
I have the dates here.
Gotcha. And then it was released on like PBS. I don't know what was it,
It was
American
released
Masters.
as PBS American Playhouse in 1991.
Yeah,
It
so-
was shot in 1989 from May 23rd to the 25th over 3 performances starring almost the entire original Broadway cast.
Yeah. So kind of like the Hamilton that is on Disney Plus now that's so very popular.
Right.
It was filmed with the original cast on Broadway and presented later on PBS, what have you. Then we found what was it that it was like the outdoor theater at Regent's Park,
Mhm.
the London production from 2010 that I didn't really know anything about. We happened to find it. It was professionally filmed. I didn't know that this was a remarkable production. I just thought, it'll be interesting to watch a production that's not from the US and that's a little closer to now in time to see what they did with it and what different choices they make. And
That is also professionally filmed.
that's professionally filmed. Yeah, we didn't that was sort of our criteria that we didn't want to watch any bootlegs. Which, by the way, I don't know, this is obviously spoiling the announcement that 2022 is going to be all Broadway all the time. But but we are planning on doing more musicals because I don't know, for the first 4 years of this, we were just like, no, we're not doing plays. We're not doing musicals. And I think
Theater's
we've
hard
come
to
around.
do because it's hard to talk about.
Yeah, but I think if we can choose properties that at least 2 professional recordings exist, like, there's a professional recording of a Broadway version and a movie or something like that, I think we'd be happy to do more musicals because we've been having a lot of fun.
Mhm.
Anyway, I didn't realize this was a remarkable production. Apparently it was, because I opened up my Sondheim tome, Look, I Made a Hat, to do some research on Into the Woods, and we'll get to that in a second. And there are tons of pictures from that production right in this book.
You had them there the whole time.
I had them there the whole time. So a well-known production. Apparently, I didn't know that. So there's that. And then we watched the movie from a few years later, 2014, I want to say.
Yep.
So I want to talk about just straightforward the plot of Into the Woods. We're going to do back at the book. And sometimes, we struggle a little bit because we don't necessarily always have physical media. When we started doing Back at the Book, we usually had like a physical book, and we're not doing that so much anymore. It's very rare that we get the back of the book in the author's own words. The author's own, and I think this is going to be kind of the theme of this episode, which is that it is a tribute to Stephen Sondheim. We found so much about this work that was in his own words, and like maybe more so than any other property we've ever done before, that he actually has commented at length on his own work, which I think is really cool. So Stephen Sondheim years ago wrote these two books, Finishing the Hat and Look, I Made a Hat, which were obviously
famous reference to his show Assassins.
Famous reference to his show famous reference to his show Sunday in the Park with George, which is itself about the process of making art. Look, I Made a Hat, where there never was a hat. Anyway, this is like his sort of magnum opus. He reflected back on his life. He had essentially a chapter for every work that he had ever done. So it's all chronological. So Finishing the Hat was up through, I don't know, the beginning of the 80s, end of the 70s maybe. And then Look, I Made a Hat is the second volume that brings us up to, the mid 2000s in time, or whenever it came out. So Into the Woods, 1987, a book by James Lapine.
Into the Woods, we have to go.
We have to go. And so I'm going to read you it's very short, actually, his little plot summary. He calls it The Notion. Sorry, if you hear book noises, this book is very heavy. In a folktale time and setting, a childless baker and his wife are told by a witch that they will be able to conceive if they can find and bring to her 4 objects. A cow as white as milk, a cape as red as blood, hair as yellow as corn, a slipper as pure as gold.
Do you think he was singing when he was sitting there at his typewriter writing this?
Yes, just humming away to himself.
Sure he was.
In the course
Actually,
of
he probably was.
He probably was. He's just like a cute little man. In the course of their quest, the baker and his wife encounter Cinderella, Little Red Riding Hood, and Jack of Jack and the Beanstalk, and become part of their stories. At the end of the first act, they achieve their goal. The second act deals with the consequences of what they did to get there. A beautiful plot summary.
Beautiful.
Written by, as I say, the author himself. So just for a little peek behind the curtain.
Stephen Sondheim is rolling over in his grave right now. We're being so disrespectful, are we?
Just for a little peek behind the curtain, I false started like 4 times, and then I finally got myself together and I started to talk and I choked on my own spit.
I think, I'm just going to go ahead and say this. I'm going to take that and I'm putting it at the end of the episode just so everyone can hear it.
All right. So, unusually for me, you usually do all of the research and, dare I say, all of the work. I myself did a little bit of research on this episode.
No, hang on. That's really sweet. Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it.
I just show up. So I just found out some interesting information, again, because all I had to do to research this was just to read 1 chapter of this book. And all of the information was there before me. So Sondheim was just coming off doing Sunday in the Park with George in 1985, 1986, which I believe won the Tony for Best Musical. And he was working on that with this prodigy, James Lapine. I didn't realize how young James Lapine was. Like, Sondheim was like 50. James Lapine was only like 32, 33.
Whatever.
When he wrote the book for 2 of the best musicals of all time. Anyway, so they'd done Sunday in the Park with George. He really wanted to work with James Lapine again. And the sort of genesis, in his own words, of how this musical came to be is so amazing. I think I might just read some of this out to you because it is, A, fascinating in its own right for how they conceived and thought of this musical, but B, like, sometimes art comes from inspiration and sometimes art just comes from like, hey, my friend and I really want to work together on something. Let's figure something out. What can we do? And I love that. I think that's great. Sondheim, if you read this whole book, there is quite a bit of a through line about like, I wanted to do things that required me to do as little work as possible for as much money as possible, which I think is just amazing.
It's beautiful.
Considering he was like one of the great geniuses of our time. So is it okay if I just like read some stuff? I think this is all Sondheim's own words. Again, this is our tribute episode to this great man.
No, like I guess I want you to do that, but I have something that I want to say that I find fascinating. We talk a lot about different worlds. We talk about literature, we talk about musical theater, we talk about TV, we talk about film, It is funny to me that I don't think it's not a perfect, 1-to-1 comparison, but in the world of musical theater, in the world of film, I feel like there are 2 people we've talked about who share some similarities, and that's Stephen Sondheim and William Goldman.
Yeah, I can see that.
Do you see like they're kind
of curmudgeonly, both of them, and like to talk about themselves and their process,
right? But also, by all accounts, are geniuses.
Yeah,
and are masters of their particular craft.
Yeah,
and I just think it's funny that in like at some point in the 80s, both of them were like, I want to do fairy tales.
Yeah.
It's not the thing I normally do, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. And you know what? It's going to be amazing and people are going to remember it forever.
Yeah.
And it's just weird to me that, like, in the span of 1 year between 87 and 88, obviously the book for Princess Bride came out before then.
Yeah.
But the idea that, like, the musical of Into the Woods and the movie of Princess Bride came out a year apart because tonally they're so similar.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's just my little thing. Please continue.
So I'm going to read, this is under general comments in Look, I Made a Hat.
Mhm.
After the exhilaration of Sunday in the Park with George, I wanted immediately to write another show with James Lapine. I suggested that we write a quest musical along the lines of The Wizard of Oz, the one movie musical I had loved in which the songs not only defined the characters and carried the story forward, but were wonderful standalone songs as well. James replied that it would be frustratingly difficult to invent a fantasy quest that could sustain itself for 2 hours or more because there were too many possibilities. Then James came up with the notion of inventing a fairy tale in the tradition of classic fairy tales, one that could be musicalized and fleshed out into a full evening, which excited us but died a borning. They discovered fairy tales are short. It seemed to be an insoluble, self-defining problem until we remembered something he'd concocted a year before when we were looking for a quick way to make a buck. It was an idea for a TV special, a story involving TV characters from situation comedies. For example, Ralph and Alice Cramden, Archie and Edith Bunker, Mary Richards and Lou Grant, etc. You can tell the time period he's talking about here.
Yeah.
In a car accident, which brings to the scene characters from the cop shows, T.J. Hooker, Joe Friday, Cagney and Lacey, etc., who take them to the hospital where they are treated by Dr. Kildare and Marcus Welby and Ben Casey, etc. I loved the idea and proposed to James that we write a brief treatment and sell it to Norman Lear, the most imaginative producer of such fare. Lear loved the idea too and declared he couldn't wait to see the script. We explained that we weren't interested in writing the script, just in selling the idea. He in turn explained that he wasn't interested in buying the idea, just in reading the script. This concluded our conversation.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
So they were like, okay, well, from that idea, they were like, let's write a fairy tale story in which all the characters from all the fairy tales come together. Then he starts to talk about the themes of the woods. He talks about Bruno Bettelheim, who, if you don't know...
Well, the woods are just trees.
The trees are just wood. Also, maybe vaginas. So he... It's the womb. So he starts to talk about Bruno Bettelheim, who, if you... most people know, but, like, he's the one that sort of wrote down the ideas of the sort of Freudian nature of fairy tales and how they represent all these different things. Again, vaginas, wombs, things like this.
It's kind of the thing that I've always loved is that, you know, the best way to make a joke funnier is explaining it.
Yeah.
I'm glad Bettelheim wanted to make fairy tales more interesting.
Yeah, so he talks about, he says, what interested James was, I just love how he talks about this. What interested James was the little dishonesties that enabled the characters to reach their happy endings. Dishonesty was something Bettelheim preferred not to deal with, as the posthumous revelations about his falsifying his academic credentials would seem to indicate. It's amazing. Okay, so he talks about Bettelheim some more. He talks about Freud. He talks about Jung, blah, 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 blah. And he talks about how a lot of these tales are cross-cultural. Like, every culture has a Cinderella story. Like, every one. They're completely universal. It draws on, like, these universal human truths, which is fantastic. And then he talks about this idea that, like, the baker and his wife those are made-up characters, right? Those don't come from any existing fairy story.
Yeah.
And so he has this idea that these are actually, like, sort of modern characters with a modern problem. They're married and they want a bigger house and they want to have a baby, that are sort of thrust into this fantasy.
They want to have a baby and then they want a bigger house.
Yeah.
I think the order is important.
Again, universal themes.
You'll understand one day.
You'll understand one day. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. I just love how he talks about this. He sort of goes into, like, Bettelheim and Freud and Jung, and then he talks about how they wanted to make a quick buck out of this. And he just has so much respect for his collaborator. I think it's really beautiful. So he talks about having done farces before, when he did A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, and working with his collaborators who wrote the book for that piece. He says, I generously offered to give Lapine the benefit of my knowledge to help him construct the plot. To this end, I suggested he draw a detailed linear map, which would chart the progress of each character's journey through the woods and how it intersected with each of the others. He gave me a tolerant smile, said he'd think about it, and plunged headlong into the woods, into the middle of the story, with minimal ideas as to where things would lead, or so he led me to believe, and emerged from them with the best constructed farce since Forum. The elegance with which he cross-cuts among the four stories simultaneously throughout the show still astonishes me. It is a lesson in play construction. he loves this guy.
I just, I feel like the joke for a long time has been find you someone who looks at you the way Lin-Manuel Miranda looks at anybody.
Yeah.
I just find you someone who writes about you the way Stephen Sondheim writes about James Lapine.
Yeah, and I just get the impression that Stephen Sondheim is a hard dude to impress. So if you're so talented that he loves you this much, like that is quite a talent. He also at one point talks about how like no actor that he's ever worked with has ever had an interesting insight into the character they were playing or made any suggestion that in any way got him to change anything about his show, except Joanna Gleason, the only actor apparently that he respects as a smart person. Apparently Joanna Gleason at one point they were talking and she said
plays the baker's wife.
She plays
in
the baker's wife.
Cast.
And at one point she turned to him and was like, my character, I just feel like she's in the wrong story. And he wrote a whole song about I'm in the wrong story. Okay, so just to wrap up with Sondheim's own words, I must add that at one point in the collaborative joy of our early discussions, I brashly predicted that if the piece worked, it would spawn innumerable productions for many years to come, since it dealt with world myths and fables and would therefore never feel dated. Moreover, it would appeal to schools and amateur theaters as well as professional ones, true, especially in conservative parts of the country, which are hesitant to support shows that deal with contemporary themes in contemporary ways and use four-letter words. There are none in the show. I predicted that Into the Woods could be a modest annuity for us, and I'm surprised to say I was right. I just love it. He's like, Freud, Jung, Bettelheim. Also, the show made me a lot of money. I'm so happy about that. It's so great.
It really is beautiful. I love it.
I found the part where he talks about Cinderella, and I love this, and I just want to mention this. We'll get into this later, but Cinderella has the song about how she came to leave her shoe on the steps of the palace because, as everyone knows, the prince smeared the steps with pitch, and the shoe got stuck, and she ran away, and he found the shoe, and that's how things went.
As everyone knows.
As everyone knows, because the Cinderella story is endemic throughout the world, and every culture has its own Cinderella story, as Sondheim talks about. However, in every version, there is this big question of, like, why did she run away? What was wrong with the prince? Why did she run? Why didn't she just stay? And James Lapine had this insight, maybe I'll leave my shoe behind as a clue to see what he'll do, to see if he'll... So Cinderella sings this song about how she leaves the shoe behind to see what he'll do. She doesn't have to make her choice right then and there on the steps of the palace. She can see what happens before she has to make any kind of decision. So Sondheim says, she doesn't want an accident of fate to fix her life. She wants to be loved for herself. Viewed in this light, the story makes sense. Not only that, it explains the universality of its appeal and why, more than any other fable, it exists in every culture. No one, as far as I know, has ever made this observation, and if there were no other reason to write this book, the opportunity for me to point out James's insight would be justification enough.
It's amazing.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
I love it.
That's what I had in Sondheim's own words about the genesis of this musical.
Mm-hmm. Well, I will say, music and lyrics by Stephen Sondheim, book by James Lapine. The original Broadway production was directed by Lapine as well.
Oh, okay.
Which I think is important to say.
Yeah.
I feel like that doesn't often happen.
Writer-director.
And he's also credited as the director of that 1991 PBS version, even it's essentially from the show.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, a couple of people that I think are worth mentioning, Bernadette Peters, obviously, as the witch.
Right, and she had just been in Sunday in the Park with George, for
right.
which I think she may have won the Tony.
I mean, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
This one did win 3 Tonys.
However,
it won Best Score, Best Book, and Best Actress in a Musical for Joanna Gleason, who plays the baker's wife.
Yes, it did somewhat suffer the fate of Ragtime because it was up against a phenomenon. Phantom of the Opera was also premiered that year.
It's a bummer.
Yeah.
Premiered in San Diego in 1986, premiered on Broadway in 1987. As I say, it won several Tonys. I mean, it's been on stage for years. There have been multiple revivals of it, touring companies, international versions. There is also, and I think it's
You were shocked when I mentioned this to you.
Like, I'm not, shocked is the wrong word. Appalled is the word. I wasn't shocked. It makes perfect sense that this is a thing that would happen.
Yeah.
It just bums me out.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell everyone about it? I don't want to. It hurts too much.
So I used to work in musical theater licensing. So there's a difference between the professional version, the school version, which usually the orchestrations are simplified.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes some of the high notes are brought down. Sometimes it's shortened a little bit. So there's professional or, regular version, school version. And then there's other junior shows like Into the Woods Junior, Seussical Junior, which are meant more for like elementary or middle schoolers. And I just happened to casually mention to you like, oh, the junior version is just Act 1. And you were like, wait, what? It's like, yeah, so a middle school could do act 1. They're not going to do act 2 that has like sex and death in it. Like, obviously.
I mean, Act 1 has sex in it. I did see that the junior edition is not just Act 1, it's Act 1 also shortened
Yeah.
to like 50 minutes or
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I
yeah.
just it seems to me
Yes.
that one could say, well, the thing that makes the show so great is how fun Sondheim's lyrics are and how fun it is to see all of the, fairy tales interacting with each other. And I get that. I agree with those things. But the thing that makes it great and the thing that made me fall in love with it is Act 2.
Yeah, I know.
Where all the stuff happens.
And that's fine. That's fine. Again, like going back to sort of the original author's intention, he
wanted to make money with this.
He wanted to make money with it. Like, he had to approve.
Yeah.
It's not like it was done without his knowledge or consent. It's not like you sign the rights away and like that's it and somebody can do whatever they want with your property and then later the author comes out and says like, this movie that they made has nothing to do with my book. This is terrible. I hate it. I disown it. He had to authorize this version. They couldn't do it if he hadn't signed off on it. So I don't care. That's fine to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. This is not a TED Talk because I don't have like a big prepared speech about this, but I think there is something to be said for the idea that once a work enters the public space, once it finds an audience, it kind of ceases to belong to the creator and now belongs to the creator and the audience.
Okay.
Which is, I mean, that's the argument that people have made for years about like George Lucas and Star Wars and stuff like that. I'm not saying I have a big prepared statement about that.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, even if Sondheim and Lapine's goal in making the show wasn't to make something really interesting and really exciting from a literary standpoint, from an artistic standpoint, they ended up making that.
Yeah.
And so for me to watch it and really respond to something in it, they have nothing to say about that. I respond the way I respond, and I found what I found in it, and I can feel however I want about the fact that there's a junior version that's just the first act.
I actually think it's great that there's a junior version. I'd much rather see middle schoolers doing a junior version of Into the Woods than like Guys and Dolls or like I'm pretty pearl clutchy about what musicals are appropriate for students to do.
Okay, two things. First of all, at no point did I say they shouldn't do it. I want to be clear, and if anyone goes back and listens, they will never at any point find me saying that they shouldn't have done that. I said I was appalled. I didn't say that they shouldn't have done it,
all right,
and I
fair
didn't
enough.
say I wouldn't allow it. I agree
Good,
with
I'm
you.
glad you allow it. You and MTI.
I agree with you.
Music Theater International.
But the second thing is you bring up something that's been really fun for me for the last couple of weeks. So you talk about like pearl clutchy and things that are appropriate or inappropriate to do. I think I've brought it up on the show before, but we're both theater kids and we were in shows in high school and stuff like that. I know I'm going to sound like the guy who peaked in high school, but I happened to be the lead in our musicals both my junior and senior year. Because junior year, we did Fiddler on the Roof, and I was Tevye. And then senior year, we did A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, and I was Pseudolus.
So basically, you were Zero Mostel.
I essentially was Zero Mostel. But I bring this all up not to say, hey, wasn't I great in high school and didn't I peak? I bring it up to say, something that has happened consistently over the years is not a year goes by that I don't feel worse about the fact that our senior musical was A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum. Because it is not appropriate.
Yeah.
It is a shitty show to make high school kids do. And a few of us were like, this is the show we should do. This is going to be great because it's so funny. What, you're telling me that if any of the girls want to be in it, well, the only options they have are playing sex workers and one shrew? No, that we don't care about that. That's totally fine. It is insane to me how few good roles for women there are in that show.
Yeah.
It is a really funny show. That's not my problem with it. It is funny, and the music and the lyrics are great. The problem is it is completely inappropriate for a high school like troupe to do.
I agree. I'm just thinking I don't think I peaked in high school. I think I was more of a slow burn.
I don't actually think I peaked in high school. I just think I sound like someone who peaked in high school.
That's fair. My high school shows were The Music Man, for which I do have quite a soft spot, and Fiddler on the Roof. So there you go.
So the thing that I've been doing for the last week is I've been texting with one of my best friends. She's been one of my best friends since we were little kids. We did all theater in high school together. She was one of the bridesmaids at our wedding. We've been texting each other for the last week, just talking about, okay, because she was in forum with me, if we had done Into the Woods instead, which I never knew what show we should have done. I always knew that we shouldn't have done Forum, and I have decided today that the show we should have done was Into the Woods, the full thing, not the junior version.
And they didn't have the junior version back then.
Doesn't matter. They didn't have the junior version in 2001.
It's like 20 years ago.
Well, okay, first of all, shut up. I know it was 20 years ago. But it's been super fun, and it's been really fun to kind of hit on a thing that has been a recurring problem for me for the last 20 years. And to suddenly
He
have
peaked
like,
in high school. I don't know if it's clear, but he did peak in high school.
but to suddenly have this like puzzle piece fit in that goes like, I know we never should have done it, but now I know what we should have done instead. And it has been so fun for us to kind of figure out like who should have been who. It's been great.
Do you want to talk about Into the Woods like at all? Because it's been like 40 minutes.
The entire point of this was two theater kids celebrating Stephen Sondheim. The point of this was not to compare versions of Into the Woods. Hey, guess what, everybody? The 1991 Into the Woods, the one that was like the original Broadway cast, it's fucking great.
It's great.
The 2010 Regent's Park version, guess what? It's also fucking great. Hey, the 2014 movie, guess what? We had some problems with it. Of course we had some problems with it. But you know what? It's actually pretty good. And a lot of it is pretty good, even if we have some problems that we're going to get into. Because Into the Woods is really good. Fair. I've talked about Into the Woods.
That was the intro. All right, so this might be a terrible idea, but I have the book in front of me. I have the author's text. So we're just going to try to go song by song and see what we have to talk about the original Broadway version, referencing that as sort of the original text.
For the record, I think this is a recipe for a 3-hour episode, but this is for Steven, so let's do it.
We're going to go quick. Okay, the first song is where all of the characters get introduced. Everybody comes together. It's so complicated. Everybody's singing at once. Everyone's on stage. It's called Into the Woods. We have a narrator. We have Cinderella. We have Jack. We have the baker and his wife.
Jack's mother.
We have Jack's mother. We have the stepmother. And it's like 12 characters. We have the stepmother, the two stepsisters. Maybe the dad is in some versions. Sorry about the page noise. We have Little Red Riding Hood. I think that's everybody. It's literally the I wish song. Everyone's singing, I wish, I wish, I wish, I wish, I wish to go to the festival. I wish we had some milk. I wish my cow. Oh, and Milky White the cow. Very important character.
Right.
So everyone's singing, I wish, I wish, I wish. It's this huge, very complex, very Sondheim opening number. We're introduced to all the characters. It's beautiful the way that all these stories are woven together. We learn what everybody wants, what everybody's doing, and they're all heading into the woods to do a thing. Into the woods to do a thing,
to go and do a thing today. Into the woods to do a thing, we have to do a thing now.
That was terrible. And we meet the witch. The witch is Bernadette Peters. The whole thing about the witch is when we first encounter her, she is old and she's ugly and she's gross and she's haggard and
all manner of other adjectives.
All kinds of things. And there's a curse. There's a curse. She's been cursed because the beans were lost from her garden. Her mother cursed her. If she ever lost the beans, she would have a curse placed on her. And the beans were stolen by the baker's father. So then the witch put a curse on them. So everybody's cursed. The baker and his wife are cursed never to have a child, and the witch is cursed to be old and ugly until she can have the curse reversed. So she tells the baker and his wife, if you go out and get the hair is red as blood.
Do you want to do that again?
Cow is yellow as corn.
As a tribute to the fact, tribute to the fact that the baker often doesn't remember what they are, you yourself have forgotten them. But I think we should keep going.
I have it written. The cow is white as milk, the cape is red as blood, the hair is yellow as corn, the slipper is pure as gold. They have to go out and get all those things. Okay, so into the woods we go to get the things we have to get. Okay, everybody's in the woods.
Let's just go through.
Cinderella's going to the festival.
Well, she has to go into the woods to talk to her mom, who lives in a tree.
Yeah, her dead mom who lives in a tree.
To figure out how to get to the festival.
Yeah.
The baker needs to go get all of the things for the witch.
Yep.
So that they can have a child. She can lift their curse and they can have a child. Little Red Riding Hood needs to go into the woods to get to grandmother's house.
The way is clear. The light is good. I have no fear, nor no one should. The woods are just trees. The trees are just wood.
I really hate to ask it, but do you have a basket? Okay. Thanks, Stephen. It's a beautiful thing that you've done. And Jack needs to go into the woods because they're trying to sell the cow.
Sell the cow. His best friend, the cow. But they have no money, and Milky White has no milk.
All right. So we have spent about 10 minutes going through a scene that takes about 10 minutes in the show. So what's your plan to get us through this?
Okay. I'm not going to mention any individual performances here because it was just a big choral number, and we're just setting up our characters for success or failure.
I'll mention individual performances. Every single person fucking kills it in
Fucking
the
kills
original
it.
Broadway
Fucking
cast.
kills it. Okay.
And when we're talking about the original Broadway version, we are talking about that 1991, American Playhouse version because
Yes.
it is the original cast.
Yes.
This is, you actually can see the original cast on stage. It's beautiful, and everyone should watch
It's
it.
very cool. So we have Cinderella at the Grave, which is a very short song where she sings to her mother. I don't think we need to go into that. And then we get to Hello, Little Girl, which is the wolf singing to Little Red Riding Hood and tempting her to go off of the path. And I have things to talk about because this is like the most Bettelheimy, like Freudian thing of all. Because Little Red's journey is about sexual awakening.
I mean, I have a question for you.
Yes,
Many things could be interpreted as phallic.
so many things.
What is the most phallic thing? What is the most phallic object you could have on the stage?
an actual dick?
A penis, you say?
So the wolf has a wolf dick. They have costumed the wolf.
He's got a dick.
He's got a dingle.
It's just hanging out.
This actress was only 16, by the way. Danielle Furland. She's amazing. She's so funny. And you thought she was older because she's like kind of so self-possessed and funny and so good.
She projects like 20. Yeah.
But yeah, she was only 16. So it is a little bit uncomfortable that like this child is on stage with a wolf who's hanging dong. And the wolf is played by Robert Westenberg, who also plays Cinderella's prince, to be clear. And so it's this sort of awakening story of like, I know that I shouldn't, and I know this person is dangerous, but I'm kind of tempted to do the thing that I've been told not to do anyway. And her story is really resolved kind of quickly.
Mm-hmm.
The wolf comes on, he tempts her off the path, she goes off the path, the wolf books it to grandmother's house, as we all know, as the story goes, eats the grandmother, eats Red Riding Hood, the baker happens along, frees them both from the wolf's stomach, the wolf is killed, and we see the grandmother, and then Little Red has a song about I know things now that I didn't know, and now I have reached some type of awakening.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I just think that Danielle Furland's performance is so good because it is not childish. It's childlike, but with the wisdom and mature. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
We'll talk a little bit later when we get to the movie about what it feels like to have an actual child doing this performance, which I think I'll just spoil it, does not work at all. It has to be someone with sort of a maturity level to understand the subject matter, in my opinion.
Well, because it's about something.
Yeah, it's
like
about
something. As you've said, the song is about something very specific.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of planting that bean there, and we'll climb that stalk later.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that Sondheim talks about in this book is the way that he wrote all of these I Know Things Now songs, one of which is actually called I Know Things Now. He said he had originally written them to sort of like tell the story of things that had happened, and it was suggested to him by someone, I think it might have been James Lapine's wife. It was like suggested to him by someone that you don't actually need to tell the story of what happened. Everybody knows the story of what happened. You just need to talk about how the character feels about it.
Yeah.
So Little Red is not singing about what happened with the wolf. She's just singing about what her experience was. Similarly, Jack, the original song, which you can find because it was in the pre-Broadway tryout, was like, "Hi, my name's Jack. I climbed a stalk. It's in this book. Like I went up the stalk and I did this and I did that and this I did that." And that turned into Giants in the Sky, which is just about his feeling about the things that happened to him, not a storytelling song.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Anyway, I guess This Is Goodbye, which is what Jack sings to the cow, which is only notable because Sondheim says it's the only song he's ever written that doesn't rhyme. And then the baker and his wife come out and sing about the beans, and there is an optional song, so I won't even get into it, called Our Little World, Rapunzel and the witch singing to each other.
We also find out that Rapunzel is actually the baker's sister.
The baker's sister, and
that never means anything.
the witch stole her, and she's been in the tower this whole time. She's got the long hair and everything. A very nice prince. So this is Cinderella has run away from the ball for the first time. The prince is chasing her, but she has not yet left the slipper behind. And I think like you were really into Kim Crosby, who plays Cinderella. You thought she was amazing, which she is.
Yep.
And it's funny, like watching Joanna Gleason and watching some of the other people who perform the baker's wife. Like Joanna Gleason won Best Actress in a musical for this. And it's funny because, like, she's a fine singer. Like, she can sing very well,
Mhm.
but she's not the best singer in the world.
No.
Like, she's not what you think of when you think of, like, the person that would win Best Actress in a musical. You would think of that person as being someone who's an unbelievable singer. But she's so funny and she's so present, and she kind of carries the show because she sets the tone of the show.
I mean, so you just mentioned tone,
Yeah.
which is what I've been waiting for this whole time.
There you go.
Because I do think we need to talk about tone, if only for a minute. The thing that defines this show is how consistent the tone is from beginning to end, even though the emotions change in the show, because it is a very fun show for the first half, and then things get heartbreaking in the second half because lots of people die. People that know the show know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
A lot of people die, including the baker's wife.
Yeah.
But tonally, it's consistent from beginning to end. There's a thing that I normally don't like, which is ironic detachment.
Yeah.
Imagine you're seeing a movie. Imagine that something amazing is happening. Like an alien has descended down from their spaceship. They're standing in front of a person. It's the first time that anyone has ever met an alien. Any Earthling has ever met an alien. And the thing that person said is, I guess I talk to aliens now. That's ironic detachment.
Yeah.
It's the idea that their response is nothing like what an actual emotional response would be to that.
Yeah.
That's a thing that I normally find in something where the people making the art don't have the confidence in what they're actually telling. And they feel like they're going to lose people because what they're telling is not compelling or believable enough. So, you know what? We'll just poke a hole in the balloon. We'll pop the whole thing by having someone express themselves through ironic detachment. And it's normally a thing that I don't really care for. This show is built on ironic detachment. And the reason it works in this show is because, as you say, it's based on stories everybody knows and has seen a million times.
Yeah.
Which is why Joanna Gleason is the perfect person to win the Best Acting Award for being in the show, because I feel like she embodies that ironic detachment, the like totally tonally appropriate ironic detachment better than almost anyone, save for Danielle Furland as Little Red Riding Hood.
Yeah, she's so good.
Because "you talk to birds" is one of the greatest lines I've ever seen in a show, and it's totally ironic detachment, and I normally would hate that, and I love it in this show.
Yeah. So we're going to come to something that I really like, which is something that is purely theatrical that cannot really be replicated in any other medium. It's a song called First Midnight, and this happens 2 or 3 times throughout the show, that it's just every character kind of, even the ones that aren't even really in the show anymore or have died or aren't major characters, kind of coming on stage, physically revolving around each other and saying what I guess I would describe as aphorisms, just like these little snippets of things. The difference between a cow and a bean is a bean can begin an adventure. Slatted spoons don't hold much soup. The prettier the flower, the farther from the path. Opportunity is not a lengthy visitor. Like all these little things. And I love it. I think it like almost makes the show that you keep having these moments that you are, it's Brechtian. I've talked about Brecht on the show before. And it is interesting because you just talked at length about ironic detachment, and Brecht was all about detachment.
Yeah.
He felt that it was important for you not to have an emotional experience. He was anti-catharsis. He didn't want you to experience catharsis, because if you're experiencing catharsis, you're not thinking about what on stage is relating to the actual events in the world, and therefore you're not going to go out and like foment social change. You're just going to think about how you feel. And he doesn't want you to have a feeling. He wants you to go out and do something. So he would have all of these things in the show that would break the fourth wall so that you, the audience, would remember that you were watching a play. And this feels very Brechtian to me, these little bits where all of the characters just keep coming on and like saying stuff and going off again. I really respond to it.
I mean, that kind of combined with the fact that there is a narrator.
Yes.
There's like literally a narrator on
who,
stage.
Yeah. So part of the whole thing is that the narrator is this old guy, and in Act 2, he gets like drawn into the performance and then he gets killed. And then the whole problem in Act 2 is that the characters now having lost their narrator, the stories are all messed up and they don't know what to do, and they can't like think for themselves. So anyway, just the structure of the show, as Sondheim himself pointed out, the structure of the show is like very complex, but also perfect. All right, so we get Jack's song, which I already talked about, Giants in the Sky.
Yep.
Then we get to your favorite song.
Agony's a fucking bop. Holy shit. And it gets a reprise.
Yeah.
It's so good. I'm not saying anything that anyone who knows the song hasn't already figured out, but Agony's amazing.
Well,
This is the
Agony
worst podcasting I've ever done because all I have to say is that it's great.
Agony is one of the best male duets in the entire musical theater canon.
Mhm.
The other one is Lily's Eyes from The Secret Garden, and it is amazing because Robert Westenberg is in both of them.
Mhm.
His voice is so good. And I was listening to Agony, and I knew the name of the person playing Cinderella's prince is Robert Westenberg, but I was listening to his voice, like just the tenor of his voice, and I was like, wait, that voice, where have I heard that voice? Wait, is he Dr. Neville Craven in the original cast of The Secret Garden? And does he sing Lily's Eyes with Mandy Patinkin? Therefore, meaning that he is in the two best male duets in musical theater history. He was in both of them. I nerded out. Also, by the way, he met Kim Crosby in the show, and they got married, and they've been married ever since and have like 3 adult kids.
Just do a Google search for Kim Crosby and Robert Westenberg because they're adorable together, and every picture you find of them is cuter than the last. They're so cute.
So then there's a reprise.
Oh, well, can I just say, so we didn't say what Agony was about for anyone that doesn't know it, is there's 2 princes in the show. We find out that they are brothers. So it's Cinderella's prince and Rapunzel's prince. And Agony is both of them talking about how hard it is to be a charming prince.
So hard.
That is trying to find a girl who keeps running away and another one who is in a tower and you can't get in there because there's no doors on the tower.
Yeah.
And it's just them one-upping each other. It is beautiful. It is big and it bombastic. And they are absolute comic characters singing 100% earnestly, but the fact that they're so earnest makes the joke work.
Yes.
And it's hilarious.
As we all know, explaining the joke makes it funnier. So then we have another reprise of Very Nice Prince, and then we get to It Takes Two, which is the baker and his wife getting their big number together. So we haven't really talked about Chip Zien and Joanna Gleason and how cute they are together.
We've talked about
show.
Joanna Gleason, but not her with Chip Zien.
Chip Zien is just this tiny wee man. He's so adorable.
Yep.
So this whole time, the baker and his wife have been like maneuvering through all these fairy tale characters, trying to find these 4 objects that I won't repeat. But this is their song about like how coming into the woods has changed you, and I'm very attracted to you, and this is great, and we're really working as a team. And I feel like every time we watched this, like you and I kind of made eye contact and reached out our hands to each other because it is a very sweet song about working as a team. You know, you have all your love songs that you want, but like this song is about marriage. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there are songs about courtship, but this song is about marriage. Like we're a team, we're getting through this together, we're gonna do this thing. We love each other, even though we drive each other crazy sometimes, and we're gonna make this thing happen.
Mm-hmm. I have nothing better to say than that.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
So then we learn that the witch knows all about Rapunzel's prince. And so she's being very mean to her and singing a song called Stay With Me, and also Children Won't Listen. So then we have Cinderella's big number, which is called On the Steps of the Palace, that I already talked about, so I won't talk at length, but it's basically about how she made a decision not to decide. She left the slipper on purpose to see what the prince would do, as opposed to running away and accidentally leaving the slipper behind. So On the Steps of the Palace is a very good song.
And it is important to say that, like, almost every time that Cinderella is singing one of these songs, she's singing to the baker's wife, who she keeps running into in the woods.
Yes.
She's telling the story afterwards.
Yeah, and that's actually the other thing that I wanted to say about this musical. Like, I think it is so interesting that they are dealing with classical themes, right? Fairy tales, things that everybody knows. They have structured it also, Lapine and Sondheim, in a very classical way. And by classical, I mean like Greek theater, Roman theater, Medea, or like Oedipus, or one of these, old Roman Greek plays. None of the action happens on stage. Something happens off stage, and then someone comes on stage and says, like, "You'll never guess what I just saw," and like has this huge monologue about something that happened off stage.
Yeah.
And that's basically what this is. You never really see anything happen on stage other than a couple of like big spectacles.
But all in the second act. It's not until they kill the narrator and like the new giant appears that things actually start happening.
Yeah, all of the stuff Cinderella's singing about all happened off stage. All the stuff that Jack sings about in Giants in the Sky all happened off stage. Like a lot of this stuff happened off stage and it's being told to another character. My assumption is they did it on purpose. These guys like knew what they were doing as a nod to sort of classical theater. would be my guess.
I mean, it could have come from multiple perspectives because it could easily have just been them saying, we don't need to show it because everybody knows it.
Exactly. But that's those plays were stories that everybody knew.
Right.
Like that it's like Shakespeare or anything. Like those stories were not new stories. People weren't like, "Oh, I really want to know what happened to Oedipus." You know, like they already knew.
Mhm.
You know, it was in the telling that it became art. So we've reached the end of Act 1. It's a song called Ever After. Everything gets resolved. They find all of the objects. They feed them to the cow. The cow pees out some milk. The witch drinks it. The witch has broken the curse. She becomes young and beautiful. And everybody is happy ever after. Curtain. And then we come to Act 2.
Gesundheit.
We begin with a similar type of song called So Happy. Everybody's so happy because they've all gotten their wish, but they don't know what to do with their wish because they have not actually taken the personal journey necessary to, it's like people that win the lottery, but they haven't taken financial planning classes, so they blow it all, or, they get taken advantage of. This is the same kind of thing. I have everything I ever wished for, but I don't know how to manage my happiness.
Mhm.
So Baker and his wife, most importantly, they have a baby. And Cinderella's married to the prince, and Little Red Riding Hood's got her wolf skin, and
Jack's rich
Jack's
because,
rich,
of course,
'cause they
Beanstalk, Giant
et cetera, et cetera.
died, the whole thing.
So then everybody's so happy, but then they all learn something weird has happened. There's this big earthquake, they think, or maybe a giant, and everybody has to go back into the woods again. The baker's going to go to tell the prince and the princess that there is maybe a giant, and Little Red Riding Hood's going to go find her grandmother again because their house got destroyed, and Jack has to go into... Remind me why Jack has to go into the woods again for... Oh, because their house got destroyed too, right?
Yeah.
There's a giant in the kingdom. Everyone's going back to the woods.
Yeah, exactly. It's not super important at this point because I feel like what you're describing only takes a little bit of Act 2, because once the giant finds everybody, everyone's motivation becomes a little bit clearer because the giant wants Jack.
Yes.
Because Jack killed the giant's husband.
Yes.
And so everyone else's motivation is either protect Jack or find Jack to give to the giant, and Jack's motivation is I don't want to go to the giant.
Yes.
And the giant's motivation is I want to kill Jack. So everything becomes much clearer at that point.
Into the woods to shield the child, to flee the winds, to find a future, to shield, to slay, to flee, to find, to fix, to hide, to move, to battle, to see what the trouble is.
Yeah.
Then we get the reprise of agony, which is amazing.
It's so good because it kills me to say this, but I could see why someone might say in the narrative, it's not the most important song.
Yes.
Because at this point, now the princes are singing about the new princesses they found.
Yeah.
Because Cinderella's prince, well, he found Sleeping Beauty. And Rapunzel's prince, well, he found Snow White.
Yes.
And
two
then
sleeping princesses.
they realize at the end that they need to go back to their wife. I don't even want to... It's
so good.
so goddamn funny.
So funny.
But the princes are already kind of minor characters. And this is pure just like... This is just referencing other fairy tales as a joke.
Yes.
And it's a beautiful joke.
Yes.
But it does have some thematic importance to everything that's going on, because their whole thing is the thing they wanted in the first act was getting their princesses.
And they got it, and they're not happy.
Exactly.
Not enough. So then the characters all have a conversation with the giant who's coming for Jack because Jack killed her husband, as you said. And what they do is they feed the narrator to the giant in lieu of Jack, who they don't have. And in the course of like 5 minutes, 3 people die. The narrator... Rapunzel comes in screaming and runs off stage and falls off the stage and gets killed. And Jack's mother, who is trying to like defend Jack from the giant, gets bopped on the head by the prince's steward and drops dead. So 3 people have died, one of whom is the narrator, and the story has become fractured. So then we have this amazing song called Any Moment, which is when the baker and his wife have gone off into the woods. They've left the baby with Little Red Riding Hood, and they're going to go look for Jack because nobody knows where he is, and they want to try to find him. And the baker's wife runs across Cinderella's prince, who it is well known he's a bit of a philanderer. And
He was raised to be charming.
He was raised to be charming, not sincere. And they just have this little interlude, and they do a sex right in the woods.
I mean, we're given to understand.
I mean, it is more than implied. And she just has this great song about what just happened. What was that? And then this is the song where the baker's wife sings, "I'm in the wrong story."
Yeah.
Like, I'm just a normal person, and I just boned a prince in the woods. Like, what is happening? Wouldn't it be great if you could have everything, but it turns out you can't? And then, of course, because she is a woman who has become empowered by her own sexuality, she stumbles off the path and gets crushed by the giant. immediately. And I think this is like the one thing that I have a little bit of beef with, because I don't feel like this is the one archetypal plot point that I don't feel like they're looking at critically. I think they killed off the baker's wife so that the baker could have a journey. And I don't necessarily appreciate that, especially because like the sexually fulfilled woman needing to be killed because of the sin of having a sexual life that she enjoys is such a trope. But I don't think they're exploring that trope. I think they've fallen into that trap a little bit. That's my, and when I say they, I mean Lapine and Sondheim. Is that fair?
Yeah.
So now, without a narrator, the characters are left adrift. They are arguing with each other about whose fault it was that people are dead and the beans and the giant is here, and like maybe it was Cinderella's fault because she threw the bean away, and maybe it was Jack's fault because he stole them in the first place, and blah 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 blah, and everybody's mad. And then the witch is like, "Fuck all of you, I'm going away." She disappears. The baker decides to abandon his baby, who has been in the woods with them this whole time, and run off by himself. And in the woods, he meets the ghost of his father, who died in the previous act after it was revealed that the mysterious man that kept appearing and saying, "When I appear, I'm nothing serious," et cetera, was actually his father. And his father's like, "Don't be like me." And the baker's like, "But you're dead." And he's like, no, don't worry about that. I'm sort of dead. We die, but we don't, et cetera, et cetera. And then the baker has this lovely song about, "I am very tired of this, but I guess I have to go back and be a dad." And then they make a plan to kill the giant. And then Cinderella sings "No One Is Alone," which is a wonderful song.
They all sing "No One
They
Is
all
Alone."
sing "No One Is Alone."
Well, because Cinderella's singing it to Little Red Riding
Yes.
Hood, and the baker is singing it to Jack, but it's this giant. It's not a duet because it's all four of them singing.
Yes.
But it is just a beautiful, beautiful fucking song.
Beautiful
It's so
fucking
good.
song. And then that goes straight into the finale, which is "Children Will Listen," which is, again, like you'll understand someday.
Because just to remind everyone, like, what is the through line we've had with this sentiment so far? Because what is the first thing the witch sings?
Children won't listen. Children don't listen. Children don't obey.
Yeah.
It is very interesting because I feel like the way that this musical structure has worked is that we've sort of heard the reprise of "Children Will Listen" before we've heard the actual song, which comes at the end.
Yeah.
Because it's "Children won't listen. Children don't listen." And now at the end we get "Children will listen," which is basically, both of us had an emotional response to this.
Well, we'll get to the. I had an emotional response to the Bernadette Peters production of it.
Yeah.
It made me feel feelings inside.
Yes.
I had a greater emotional response later that we'll talk about.
But it's like, careful what you say because your children love you and they listen. They listen to what you say. Which, it's funny because I have been thinking about this with our 2-year-old. Like, even the most mundane things, like anything you say, he just repeats. So it's not even just like the big stuff, like be careful what you actively teach your children, but just be careful what you say in their hearing because they do listen. The line is, "Children may not obey, but children will listen." Like, they might not do what you say, but they're listening to every word that you say. You have to be,
and they're seeing every single thing that you do.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And you and I have had this experience where we've been talking about we were having like some conversation where we were kind of dunking on someone. And you were like, and it wasn't even like a super negative conversation. We were just like dunking on someone. And you were like, "Let's talk about this later because I don't want him to see us having this like snarky conversation." And you were right to say that,
Thank you. Before you move on, I will just say, in a show that's full of songs that are all the best song in the show, "Children Will Listen" is also the best song in the show.
Yes, it's also the last song in the show. And then there's a little reprise of "Into the Woods,"
which is also the best song in the show.
Yes, and "Happy Ever After," et cetera, et cetera. Whew, the end. That only took me like 20 minutes.
I'm proud of you. That's great. Shorter than I expected it to be.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So that's "Into the Woods." Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Yeah, what else can we say about this original one? It is a miracle that this exists. It is not often that something like this actually exists that people can go watch. Not only can everyone watch it, if you haven't seen it, you must watch it.
Yes. So then we watch this Regent's Park production. It was like outdoor theater in 2010.
Yeah, it was directed by Timothy Sheeter. It was choreographed by Liam Steele.
Yeah. One of the reasons that it's hard to talk about plays as adaptations of an original text is that, for those of you that don't know, not everybody knows this, when you license a play for production, usually, very overwhelmingly frequently, you can't make any changes to it. So it's not the kind of thing like a movie or a property or a script where the director can make lots of changes and, do different things. A production of a play, the text or the script is always going to be the same every single time, especially a musical. Like I said before, I used to work adjacent to musical theater licensing, and they are very strict. Like, you cannot cut anything. Like, you are to perform the licensed musical in the form that exists. Otherwise, you could have your rights pulled. And, people take this varying degrees of seriously, but certainly a professional, like a high school production, no one's going to like come after you if you cut a couple lines here and there. But like a professional production, the text and the lines and everything is going to be exactly the same as what the original production was, or the licensed version anyway. So
isn't it great that someone like Shakespeare is out of copyright at this point?
Well, exactly. Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm not kidding.
Yeah, for sure. So this is why, like, you talk about different productions of plays. Sometimes there's not that much to talk about because it is the same play, as opposed to movies. Like, if you do a different version of a movie, a new adaptation of a movie, it may be very different. All you really have to play with is the staging, maybe the casting, the costuming. You can take a different tack, which this version did, and I thought very successfully.
Like, it's like 90% really successful.
Yeah.
And like 10% did not do anything for us.
Yeah. Do you want to describe kind of how this was all staged?
Yeah, so the entire thing is outside. It's in Regent's Park. It happens in the evening. There's no curtain, obviously. There's no stage. They just have a clearing, and they have erected this giant, like, 3-level scaffolding. And so the entire show happens at different places on the scaffolding.
Yeah.
So it might happen down on the ground. It might happen on the second level, on the third level. People can climb up and down. And the way they use it is, like, most of the time pretty great.
Yeah.
There are some problems they run into with it, because occasionally there are songs where because they've chosen to put the actors for that song on like the third level of the scaffolding, they have nowhere to move.
Right.
So it becomes kind of static. Like, Agony becomes a very static number in this show.
Yeah.
Which kind of bummed me out a little bit.
Yeah, and they've gone with this kind of fun mix of fairy tale / modern / fantasy / like steampunk.
Kind of.
Yeah. So Cinderella and the Princes all have like kind of dreadlocks and headphones, which I didn't quite get.
Well, yeah, Cinderella's got these big cans around her neck.
Yeah.
And she's got a nose ring.
Yeah.
But then she's also like, her dress is very kind of like, I would say like classic fairy tale.
Kind of, but it's kind of like distressed, like on purpose. And she's also got like blue dreadlocks. And then the princes have goggles. They both, and like a lot of hair.
But not like steampunk goggles. They're like skiing goggles.
Yeah. Which I guess it makes sense when you consider that the framing device is that this is all the imagination of a child.
Well, you're getting to the big thing.
Yeah. So they've made one really, really big change, which is that they have changed the character of the narrator from an old man to this boy. What, 11, 12 maybe?
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah, who has come into the woods because we sort of see at the beginning of the show he's had like a fight with his dad, and he's run away into the woods. He's got a sleeping bag and everything, and he amuses himself.
He's got some action figures with him, and like he's got like a troll doll, and it's clear that he's pretending that the troll doll is Rapunzel.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
He's sort of amusing himself by acting out the story, but he's actually playing the role of the narrator, which is a really significant role, and this kid does an amazing job.
Mm-hmm. I think there were 3 different kids that did it. I think this one is Eddie Manning.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
But I don't think he was the only one that played the character.
That makes sense. Yeah. So he does a great job, and we sort of realized, I don't know, halfway through that, like, wait, the fact that they feed the narrator to the giant means that we're gonna have to see this kid die, which we weren't thrilled about.
Yeah.
And so then I had this feeling of like, oh, I really liked this up to this point, that this is all a kid's imagination, and now I hate it because you made me watch this kid get fed to a giant. And then it turns out at the end he does come back. He didn't actually die for real.
Right.
That was just he just fell asleep, I think. And like that's the point of the story.
And that's why like all the characters now are rudderless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we
Are you gonna say the thing that demolished us?
Yeah, so we really went on a journey with this kid because at the beginning I was like, oh, this is really fun. This is really interesting. I really like this choice that they've made. This is great. Then I went to, oh, I hate this. I don't like this. I think this doesn't work because I don't like the fact that they've just murdered a child. And then it comes back around. So at the end, basically what happens is the baker's wife is dead, and she comes back sort of as a spirit and says to him, like, tell our son this story. And
Well, because the kid keeps crying and he's trying to come up with a way to
to
like
calm the
calm the
baby.
baby, and she says, "Tell him the story."
Yeah.
And so he says, "Once upon a time," and he starts telling the story
Yeah.
of what we just saw.
Yeah. And so then the two stories kind of meld, and it turns out the baker is the dad searching for his 11-year-old kid who's run off to the woods, and they're so happy to see each other, and he's telling the kid the story, and he's found him, and they're happy, and they're going to go out of the woods, and they're singing Children Will Listen or whatever. And we were both like we were demolished by this. It was very, very hard, but it by God, like, it worked.
I mean, it's not often that something demolishes both of us.
Yeah.
I feel like 9 times out of 10, I'm the one sobbing and you're the one kind of comforting me. And like every now and then, it's a thing that hits you really, really hard, and I can be there for you. But this is one where we needed to be there for each other.
Yeah.
It's so good. Like, this is what the thing I'm talking about. Like 90% of the changes that they make and the really specific choices that they make, I think work so well. And that's like, that more than anything is a choice that works well, that I think I kind of prefer to the original because I had more of an emotional response to it. But like, apart from that, the casting's really good. I would say one of my favorite things in the show is how they do the giant.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, first of all, the giant's voice is Judi Dench.
Yeah.
All pre-recorded. But it's hard to describe, and this is one of the reasons why I think everyone should try to find this, because in the original show, the giant is almost always off stage.
Yeah.
Because how do you show a giant on a stage? And then when they actually, the giant's wife rather, and then when they kill the giant's wife at the end, they've crafted this giant, like the back of the giant's wife's head.
Yeah.
And she falls down onto the stage, but you never see her face. In this one, they've really used props in an interesting way, where the giant is played by 8 different actors
Yeah,
on
it's
stage.
the kind of thing where a lot of the actors are on stage all the time, like doing different things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her eyelids are umbrellas
Yeah.
and her eyes are lanterns. Like, every single part of her is just an object that you would recognize. It is brilliant.
Yeah.
I loved it. It like that, and the whole thing at the end with the kid and the baker being his dad.
Yeah.
Were like my favorite parts of this whole thing.
Yeah, and I would say like the thing with the scaffolding is like I've certainly been in this, not to speak from my like a vast experience of doing theater, but like I've definitely like been in this, had this experience where you sort of paint yourself into the corner with a concept, and you're like, you know what, this one scene doesn't really work for the concept, but like I can't change it
Yeah.
for this one thing that doesn't super work, so we're just gonna do our best. You know what I mean?
Before we move on, because I feel like we don't have that much more to say about this one, I think there's 2 pieces of casting that I wanted to mention really quickly. One was Jenna Russell as the baker's wife.
Oh yeah,
Because you had a moment with that I thought was really fun.
I was like, how do I recognize her? And I realized I had seen her in Sunday in the Park with George when I was in grad school, and I think it was a Meneer Chocolate Factory production that transferred to Broadway, is my recollection. But it was a really cool production. It was all like all of the art and all of the like the dot paintings and everything was all projection, and it looked really cool. She was really good, but it was a really cool production too.
She was great. But the witch, I was so excited because I found out that the witch is Hannah Waddingham. And I'm excited for this for multiple reasons. One is I, like many people, now know her from Ted Lasso because she plays Rebecca, and Rebecca's one of my favorite characters on recent television. She's great. She's also, you even know who this is, even though you didn't watch Game of Thrones, but she's the shame lady from Game of Thrones with the bell. Anyway, she's a great singer and musical theater person, and she plays the witch, and I was so excited about it. She kills it in the show.
Oh, her makeup is a pickle. It is awful to look at.
I loved it so much. Well, you pointed out a thing to me that they were clearly referencing, because the way they've done her costuming
Yeah. Thank you for reminding me.
is she's got this amazing mask and costume on, but they've given her like these 2 big crutches that she's walking
These big
on.
sticks, yeah.
And she looks like a spider.
Yeah, so when the light shines on her, there's this big shadow, and she looks like a spider. And I looked at her in this way, and I said, "Oh, they stole that from the famous Richard III with Anthony Sher, who just died, which is so sad." But I got a book and showed you what that looked like, and you were like, "Yep,
Yeah,
looks similar."
same thing. But
yeah,
I mean, I don't think that's stealing.
no, it's just it's a theatrical device that like if you put someone on these like forearm crutches and then you shine a light on them, the shadow looks like a spider, and it was really interesting.
Watch this if you can. It is so good.
Yeah, it's on YouTube unless it got taken down.
So I think it's important, before we talk about the 2014 movie, to just level set, remind ourselves that the entire point of this episode was to celebrate Stephen Sondheim.
Yeah.
So I say all of that to make sure that the tenor of our conversation
Is
about
positive.
this movie is generally positive.
That being said,
We didn't love this movie.
I did not care for it. Can I just say,
Yes.
unusually for me, I did not have really much beef with anyone's performance. Like, I thought everyone's performance in this was actually really good. Like,
Yeah.
they got genuine musical theater people to actually sing. Unlike Les Mis, they didn't have them sing live. They all sounded good.
Maybe a little too good sometimes.
Maybe
there's
a little,
there's
some auto-tune.
there's a generous smattering of auto-tune in this movie.
Yeah. You know, my immediate reaction to this was like, the director just like does not understand musical theater. And then I realized it was Rob Marshall, who like is legit. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
you can't say Rob Marshall, who directed fucking Chicago, doesn't understand musical theater. So like you literally can't say that.
I didn't know that he was himself like a dancer and an actor.
Yeah.
I didn't know that he hurt his back doing Cats, and that's why he moved into choreography.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that he was like a long time big choreographer.
Oh, big
I
choreographer.
didn't know
And his
that.
sister is Kathleen Marshall, who's also a huge musical theater
Yeah.
director and choreographer. So like super chops on this guy, which kind of baffles me because it would be so easy to say like, well, the director just didn't understand how musicals are supposed to work.
It's the thing that's easy for us sometimes, because sometimes we come across something that we feel is unsuccessful for whatever reason. A huge misfire, a small misfire. They kind of didn't get something thematic, or they made a giant change that kind of makes the whole thing crumble.
Giant.
Yeah. But like whatever it is, there's lots of times that we've watched something that we feel isn't successful. And the thing that's pretty consistent with a lot of them is they're made by someone who was the wrong person for it.
Yeah.
But by all accounts, Rob Marshall's not the wrong person to do this. And I'm really glad you brought up the idea that even though we love Stephen Sondheim, and even though I think we would agree with him that James Lapine is very smart
Yeah.
and very talented, they're not above criticism.
Sure.
And I'm glad that you actually did level some, what I feel is very fair, valid criticism
Mm-hmm.
at them before we got to this point, because they were involved in this.
Yeah.
James Lapine wrote the screenplay. This isn't like based on the play by James Lapine and Stephen Sondheim. Like, no, he actually wrote the screenplay.
Yeah.
There was a story that came out where people were saying like, oh, it's Disney is producing it, so they're going to neuter it. And Stephen Sondheim like went to Playbill, I think, with a statement saying like, we've been heavily involved in it. This is a real collaboration. All the things that you're worried about are still in it. We're actually involved in this, so everyone needs to shut up.
Well, except that that's not the case, because a lot of things aren't still in it.
But that's the thing. But he actually came out and said that.
Yeah.
He didn't say that everything's in it. He said a lot of things are still in it. And every change was run past him and James Lapine.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is we're going to get into some light disagreement with people who are, by all accounts, much more talented than we are at the thing that they do.
Yeah. I'm going to limit myself. I have some notes, but I am going to limit myself to broader choices that I felt didn't work as opposed to nitpicking. Is
Mhm.
that fair?
I think that is fair.
Okay. Here is one broader choice that I felt did not work for me. The casting of both Jack and Little Red.
Mhm.
They cast actual children, whereas in every production I've seen, they are young adults or adults playing younger people,
Yeah.
right? And I don't think that's just a factor of casting. I think it is a factor of their journey is about the journey to become a grown-up. So if they are still 12 at the end, they have not gone on that journey. That's what I'm saying.
Mhm.
So you have Jack, who is the same actor who I thought was very good as Gavroche in the Les Mis movie,
Yep.
despite the many problems we had
This
with
is
that film.
Daniel Huddlestone.
Yeah. I thought his Gavroche was excellent.
Yeah, it was good.
And I think he's a very good singer and actor. The song Giants in the Sky is about growing up and becoming a man, like specifically a man,
Yeah.
and his relationship with his mother is about his mother's frustration that he hasn't grown up and isn't smart and isn't helping her, and he forgets things, and her dialogue when she's saying all these things to an actual child, it just becomes very cruel. Because she's like, Jack, how can you be so stupid? Like, how can you not know these things? It's like, yeah, well, of course he doesn't. He's a little kid. So that didn't work for me. related, Little Red is also an actual child. Her name is Lila Crawford. She was straight off of playing Annie on Broadway. That was how they found her.
Even if you hadn't told me, I would have guessed that.
Yeah. So she was one of these people that like got found in a national talent search, like for Annie. You know, they do these every so often. Like, we're gonna do Annie, but we're gonna cast it with an unknown. She got picked out of every little girl in the entire country to play Annie on Broadway, and went from that to doing the movie of Into the Woods as Little Red Riding Hood. So like a great talent, right? But she sings her Little Red song like Annie. And that song is, as I've mentioned before, is about a sexual awakening. And so when you have it sung by an actual little girl, it is both disturbing. It also doesn't make sense. Like, at the same time, I question this entire choice to have these kids played by actual kids. It doesn't work for me. On the other hand, maybe having kids played by adults in a movie also doesn't work. So like, it is kind of between a rock and a hard place. And this is where we get to that sort of ironic detachment of like, you have to embrace the unrealism of a theatrical production. And I think what they were going for in this, and I think this is what you were going to say, so I'm sorry to cut you off.
No,
but
it's fine.
I think what they were going for in this is hyperrealism.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I don't think hyperrealism works for Into the Woods. And I think that is probably the source of most of our disputes about some of the choices that they made.
I mean, that's my problem, is the tone.
Yeah.
I think the tone for the movie is wrong. I think it is unsuccessful. I think it is unproductive. I don't think it fits the material. And I think that's Rob Marshall, because that's the thing that I see with his work is there's this desire for everything to be very... Like, I hate using the word real.
Gritty.
But that's the thing. It's like they're gritty and grimy usually is to make things feel lived in and real. Again, I go back to Princess Bride.
Yeah.
Princess Bride is this story where everyone takes this world at face value because everyone lives in this world. No one is looking at it saying like, well, the world that we live in is weird. Like, no, they're all saying this is the world that we live in. There are Miracle Max is, you can bring people back from the dead. That's a thing. Like miracle pills. That's a thing.
Yeah.
You know, you go into the fire swamp like that. These are things, but it's not this overly dirty, grimy aesthetic. It's this very classical kind of fairy tale aesthetic where everything is very clean and nicely pressed and looks like a Disney movie.
Yeah.
Right? But what they're doing is funnier because it's kind of lampooning that. And I feel like that's the thing about Into the Woods that makes the show work so well is the fact that tonally, it's not trying to be really real. It's not trying to be dirty and grimy and serious. We're watching, I'm going to link to this in the show notes. I mentioned the channel Sideways on YouTube when we did Les Mis. He also did a video about Into the Woods that I don't really think we're going to reference too much.
Yeah.
But he did bring up one comparison that I want to give credit to, which is that let's look at Rapunzel bringing back her prince's sight.
Yeah, as he points out, in the play, it's funny. It's played for laughs.
Yeah, because she weeps tears into his eyes that have been stabbed out with thorns, and he gets his eyesight back. And in the show, you say it's played for laughs. It's very broad, and it's very funny. In the movie, it is completely serious.
It's deadly serious.
Deadly serious.
It's like Twilight.
And I look at that as kind of emblematic of many decisions that were made across the entire movie. They're going for something gritty. They're going for something really emotional. I was talking before about ironic detachment. The whole thing in this is like, there is genuine emotion, but no one's really feeling the feelings that you would be feeling in that situation 100%.
Yeah.
Because they want to remind the audience that this is a play being performed by actors.
Yeah.
Right? And so one piece of casting that I don't have a problem with the casting. I have a problem with the direction, and that was Emily Blunt as the baker's wife.
Yeah.
My problem was, and this was actually something that I read about, I think Rob Marshall was talking about how great it was, about the emotional reality she brought to the character, but I actually found her to be way too earnest the entire time. And that was the thing I loved about Joanna Gleason and talked about before, is that she isn't entirely earnest all the time.
Yeah.
There is that detachment, and I think it's one of the reasons why the show works, and it's one of the reasons why she deserved the award that she got for playing the part. But Emily Blunt is not the only person. The emotions run very, very high in this movie. And I feel like what they were trying to do was to get every single character to live in the emotion of what would be happening to you if you were this character. But that, to me, defeats the point of the show.
Well, it is interesting, like, you talk about Rob Marshall, because it is something that I think worked for Chicago because
Yeah.
Chicago, the play, the musical is highly stylized. It's highly theatrical. And he did bring some of those touches to the movie, but it is also very gritty and very real and very intense. And I think that works for Chicago,
Yeah.
even though the structure of the play Chicago is theatrical. I'm not sure that tone works for Into the Woods.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it doesn't.
Yeah, like this movie kind of works. Like actually,
Yeah.
I'm not going to say this movie doesn't work.
Yeah.
It kind of works.
Yeah.
It kind of works.
But there's just like these little things that it's like, okay, well, if this is existing in the land of realism, then doesn't work and it's not funny. Like when the baker buys the cow from Jack, it's not funny because he's scamming a child.
Yeah.
Like an actual child. And the cow is a real cow. And in the show, Milky White is always played by like a very fake cow. And so when it dies, it just falls over and it's super funny. But I remember saying to you right at the beginning, like, are we going to have to watch this cow die?
Yeah.
Bringing realism to it makes a lot of the things that are funny not work. And clearly they weren't going for funny, which is fine. But I guess I would argue that funny is what makes the show work in a lot of places.
And it kills me because there are some moments in the movie that are legitimately funny.
Yeah.
Like the one that got me, and it's in the show, the baker is trying to get Little Red Riding Hood.
Yeah.
And so he rips it off her and runs away, and she starts screaming, and he gets scared, and he brings it back to her.
Yeah.
It's a very funny moment. I think it's funnier in the movie than it is in the show.
Yeah.
It's staged beautifully. It is made by people who know how to make a movie.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. And there were some moments through the movie that had things like that. I thought Agony was pretty good.
Yeah.
I didn't love the casting of the two princes.
Yeah.
But like I actually thought they understood that Agony is a joke.
Yeah.
I think they got that.
Yeah.
But then we never see the Agony reprise, so that bummed me out.
Right, because I guess you're sort of coming to the second big overarching thing that I want to talk about, which is I did not think that the transition from Act 1 to Act 2, which in the musical is very abrupt, which makes sense because there's literally an intermission there. I didn't think it worked, the transition, and then Act 2 just felt like a mess. Like very few of the songs from Act 2. I remember I wrote down in all caps, when was the last time we heard a song? They were just trying to get through the plot so fast that we didn't have time to hear any of the songs. We didn't hear the Baker song no more. We heard like a little bit of the music from it when he's in the woods like talking to his dad, and I wrote down he's not going to sing the fucking song. Like he didn't sing the song. We didn't hear Agony. I just wonder how many of those songs they filmed and then thought, well, we need to cut something for time. I guess we'll cut the song.
Yeah.
And we never got Ever After, which is the end number of Act 1. So we didn't get this natural transition from like everything's great, now everything's going to go bad again. We didn't have those two contrasting pieces, which again, if you're going for realism, I guess that makes sense. Like that's not how life works. Like things just sort of, they don't have a end and then a new beginning. They don't have an intermission. Things just transition from one thing to another. That happens. But I don't know. It didn't work for me. Can I just say one, like this is my minor quibble that
Sure, you can pick one nit.
Here's my nit that I'm going to pick. Not for nothing, this movie does this thing that I've seen in many movies that infuriates me. We know it's important for not everyone in the movie to be white, so we're going to put people who aren't white as background actors, but everyone just coincidentally who has a speaking role is white.
Yeah. No, it's not good.
I hate that.
That's not, I wouldn't even call that nitpicking. Like that's significant.
It's significant. Yeah. It really sucks because it was like every single person who plays a character is white. And then you see a crowd scene, and it's like, oh, they cast this with people of many races and ethnicities and backgrounds, just all in the background. And I think it sucks. I think it makes the fact that all the speaking characters are white actually more obvious. And shame on them. They did a bad job.
Yeah. I think I want to end on stuff I liked.
Okay.
Even if the way I'm going to talk about some of it is critically Meryl Streep.
Okay.
As the witch. I have some problems with the fact that her witch was like, okay, she's ugly.
She just looked kind of wrinkly.
Yeah, but she wasn't like horrifying to look at.
No.
And then when she turned into like the more beautiful version of her, she looked great. I mean, Meryl Streep is beautiful, but she basically turned from like
Meryl Streep without makeup to Meryl Streep with makeup.
Yeah, like it wasn't this drastic change the way it's done theatrically.
Yeah.
I understand that if they have made the decision that this part could be played by Meryl Streep, why they would want Meryl Streep.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me, because if you think the part could be Meryl Streep, why wouldn't you want Meryl Streep?
Yeah.
My question is, why did they think Meryl Streep was the right person to play this part?
Yeah, and I guess I just don't understand what the impetus was. In every version that we saw, the witch at the beginning is like unrecognizably grotesque. Like
Yeah.
she's disgusting. And I don't know why they just made it as like Meryl Streep is kind of old and now she's a little younger with blue hair.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, that transition didn't super work for me.
Like, my note about her was, it's not like Meryl Streep isn't ever good.
Yeah.
She's good in this. Like, she's always good. She's Meryl Streep. And the parts where she's good tend not to be the singing parts.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the bigger problems with it, is that we were talking about, like, she sings a lot. My favorite movie that she's ever done singing in was A Prairie Home Companion.
Yeah.
Because she and Lily Tomlin play these singing sisters, and they've been doing it for years, and it's super folksy and real kind of country. And the point is not that she has the greatest voice in the world. The point is that they are very charming together.
Yes.
And that works for her. But anything where she has to have a great voice, Meryl Streep, among her many talents, does not have an amazing voice. Yeah, I think you said this to me, that, like, this is the thing you liked, that when Robin Williams did Aladdin, he said, but I can't sing. And they're like, well, you can do an impression of someone who can sing, right? And he said, yeah. And they said, well, just do that. And, like, Meryl Streep is not a singer.
She can act like someone who can sing.
Exactly. And she does that. And she's not bad in it. It's just one of these things where I feel like they could have found someone who was better for the part. And that, to me, feels like stunt casting.
Yeah, it
just
was stuck. Like,
it's just like Johnny Depp is the big bad wolf.
yeah, like Rob Marshall's a Broadway person.
Mm-hmm.
Get fucking Audra McDonald. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, come on, really? Like, get Broadway people to do it.
I mean, there's so much crossover. So we
Yeah.
could have made that case to them. I said I wanted to talk about things that I like, and I haven't really done that, because Meryl Streep is pretty good in it.
Yeah.
She is pretty good in it. I think a lot of parts of it are funny. I think my favorite scene in the movie, even though I bet you could make a compelling case for why it was wrong-headed,
Okay.
was on the steps of the palace.
Yeah.
Which, as we talked about in the show, Cinderella is always talking about things that already happened off stage. And so she's talking to the baker's wife, telling her about how she left her shoe. In this one, they make the decision that the entire thing is happening in Cinderella's head the second that her shoe gets stuck in the pitch on the stairs.
Yep.
As much as I could understand someone saying, well, they shouldn't have done it that way because that's not how the show functions, I thought it was really effective. I thought it was a really good scene in a movie. It was a good way to show that cinematically.
Yeah, but I agree with you, because it was something that works cinematically in the form of a movie that wouldn't have worked theatrically, but that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're going to make the transition from stage to screen,
yeah,
you may as well use the craft of movie making to do things that you can't do in the theater. Like, that's fine. It's not important to me that Cinderella is only describing what happened off stage. There are definitely other things that are important to me that were not in this film. Like, I don't know, all of the songs in Act 2.
I know.
All right. Do you have anything else?
I don't really have much else.
I'm sorry that we came down hard.
I tried not to. I had lots of problems with it, but, like, here's what I expected. I expected to come in knowing that there was the junior version of the show, and I expected it to be made, because I knew it was produced by Disney, and I'm sure I wasn't the only person who was scared of this, that it was going to be made by people going, well, it's fairy tales and we're Disney, so do that. And it's not going to get into the more challenging stuff. And the thing is, the movie kind of ends up being nothing, because it's not a huge misfire. I don't think it's a bad movie.
Yeah.
I think it's got a lot of good stuff in it. It is competently made. It makes a lot of decisions that I disagree with, but, like, it's pretty okay. But because of that, it ends up not really being much of anything. Because if it was a colossal misfire, it would be this amazing lesson,
Yeah.
you know, and we could really talk about it for a long time and feel really strongly about it. If it was incredible, then that would be great as well. But it just kind of ends up being nothing. And because it cuts so much stuff from the more challenging, more interesting second act, but keeps some of it, it ends up not. Here's, I think, a perfect example. What's Little Red's song after she gets cut out of the wolf?
I know things now.
What is it in reference to?
Sex.
Right? But in this one, they keep it.
Yeah.
But because she's a kid, what is the song about now?
No idea.
That's the thing. It's kind of about nothing.
Yeah.
The world is dangerous.
Don't get eaten by a wolf.
Like, that's the thing. It just becomes super literal.
Yeah, super literal.
And you had something that was about something, and now you've made it about nothing.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is a missed opportunity. And I'm so glad we have these other filmed versions
Yes.
that people can watch.
Yes, I was going to say, like, if you've seen this movie and liked it, I don't blame you, because Into the Woods is a great story and it's great music, and all the performances in this are actually really good.
Yeah.
And I would not say to anyone, you are dumb for liking things. We never do that. We try not to do that.
We did get a really sweet email about Les Mis because we did pause it because we came down on that movie so hard. And we got a really sweet email from one of our listeners who, because we asked in the show, we can't imagine what it would be like to have this movie be your introduction to Les Mis.
Yeah.
And someone wrote in and said, hey, I'm that person. This was my introduction to Les Mis.
Also, I love it.
I love it
you
so
guys
much.
Are kind of jerks.
No, it was
She was really nice. They were really nice.
It was a really sweet email. I thought it was important to get that email before we did this episode because I really want to remind myself, like, anything that's like even what we feel is a subpar version of a good thing, that could still be someone's introduction to it.
Yeah. And the thing that I think I said about Les Mis at the time, and I will say again, is that I would never want to crap on someone who doesn't have access to musical theater, especially now in pandemic times, in its what many would argue ideal form, which is to see it live. And I would never want to say, like, well, because you like this movie, which is the only opportunity you have to see Les Mis at all, that's not good enough.
Yeah.
I will say about Into the Woods, if you love this movie, there are at least 2 professionally filmed, very competent, very excellent versions of live productions that I would highly recommend you watch, because I think you'll like them too. That's what I would say.
I think that's a really fair way to put that.
Yeah.
So let's go back and do some quadrants really quick. The movie, I guess it's only let's talk about Regent's Park for a second, because they made a very big change that really changed the subtext for us. I think it's worth talking about that. Do you think they cared about the source material?
Yes.
Was it successful? Yes.
Yes, it's very
Apparently, Sondheim saw it twice.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine, like, being in the cast that night that Sondheim is there. I can't imagine
Well,
that.
he put so many pictures of it in his book. It's really sweet.
Yeah. 2014 movie, do you think they cared about Into the Woods?
Of course they did.
Of course they did. Deeply. Like, this was a passion project for Rob Marshall. He wanted to make this for years. Was it successful?
I'm going to come down. I'm going to say no.
In the spirit of what this show is about, I'm going to say yes, it was successful because it took something that is great and it introduced it potentially to a whole new audience who can then go and discover the original Broadway version and other performances and other recordings of it, and even the junior version of it. And the movie's not that bad, even though I have some problems with it. For the sake...
You make me feel like a bad person, because I think that was a very sweet and generous thing to say, but I am going to stick by my original thing, which was to say, no, it was not successful.
I didn't like it, but I think it's successful.
All right.
Well, this has been Adapt or Perish. If you'd like to find us online, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AdaptCast. You can join our groups on Facebook and Goodreads, and you can also find and follow me on Letterboxd. If you have anything to say that's longer than a tweet, you can always send an email to adapterperishcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the show, there are 3 great ways you can do it. First, tell a friend. Second, a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice would be greatly appreciated. Third, we are on Patreon. This show will always be free, but if you become a patron, you can get access to Adapt or Perish Plus, our bonus show that releases every other week between episodes of this show, and our patron-only Slack community. It's been a lot of fun, and all the details are at patreon.com/adaptcast.
And happy ever after.
I wish. Actually, I do wish that all of you could know just how much fun we have while we're recording. I promised this before, so here's that moment that I cut out earlier. Bye, everybody.
Bye. So my understanding, and you're going to maybe give a little more background, but my mind just went totally blank. I'm so sorry. So
I love you. You're doing great. Sweetie, you're killing it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So,